a commercial use, there's very limited approaches to try and reduce commercial use. When we get our public health and safety calculation, you get 70% of your historical unconstrained use. But for the most part, the only place that you can conserve that 30% is either reduce production for a commercial development, or if they have landscaping, reduce the landscaping. But it doesn't always equate to 30% of their usage. You know, take for instance the garlic plant. They don't have a lot of landscaping, but if you try to cut them 30%, that would further reduce their operational capacity. So that's very challenging. So who takes the burden of that? Unfortunately, residential does, because they have to make up for that, because it's very difficult to have that reduction and monitor it. Same thing with industrial use. Industrial use is very similar. We have the oil companies and we have other industrial users. So if we go to no ornamental turf watering, it could potentially save 10 acre-foot. And in reality, is what I brought up in the staff report, is that the governor has an executive order that ornamental turf should not be watered. It should be, all sprinklers should be turned off on ornamental turf, according to his executive order. And so that includes commercial, industrial, and institutional. And so as we get further, we'll explain that. But basically, you have two options. You have, and you can see it's not a huge savings with industrial water users. No ornamental turf waterings, maybe 10 acre-feet, and 30% reduction just for, and that's starting September to the end of the water year, which is the end of February, like 18 acre-feet. Institutional accounts are the schools, hospitals, and churches. And no ornamental turf watering could potentially save 30 acre-feet. So those are your non-necessary turf locations. In terms of Pleasant Valley State Prison and the Coalinga State Hospital, this is where there's been some challenges, and this has been a huge discussion with the Bureau, as I mentioned earlier, receiving 70% of their historical use, which is a 30% reduction. They have gotten to the point where they can't conserve anymore. They've told us they can't conserve anymore, which means who picks up the 30%? The residential sector does. And so we have been talking with the State Bureau of Reclamation on these arguments that if we can't push them to further reduce, we're going to lose out on that 30%. And so there have been discussions with the Bureau and support to potentially backfill that 30% that they're going to use to allow to lessen the burden on our residential customers.